Well, it's been a while. Here we are back at Aspern Essling. What the hell is going on? I'll try to piece together what's happened from my memory and what notes I have going on. I would have gotten up here a little bit earlier, but I've been sick. And now today I have a dental appointment. Plus there's like a mushroom cloud up there. Yeah, it happens regularly, so. You know, I can't keep putting it off constantly. And, just reading, I've got a couple of books I was reading there and more downstairs and whatever. Not been doing the, whatever the hell it is I do with books in terms of the reviews. Okay, so what happened? We played the first day of the battle, and it was kind of intense. The Austrians moved forward here, got pushed back, scared away, but then they launched an additional attack, coordinating both against Aspern and Essling, earlier on Aspern, and they took it. And threw the French back. They tried to push the French further back to get them in a position where they could have chased the Fourth Corps away or whatever, and, you know, really just dropped the whole position to just a tiny little bridgehead. That didn't happen. What did happen, though, if I can find my sheet, is a lot of people died. And Napoleon took a bullet, but I believe he's back on the board. Remember, the Austerlitz scenario has a proviso in it. If you manage to lose Napoleon in this, you have to give up wargaming forever, which is really terrifying. And, well, I mean, I may be close to doing that anyway, just... You know, it felt like it with me not playing it for so long. And I'm kind of dreading going back to this system, and I'm dreading playing the Talavera games. Oh shit, I'm out of battery already. What the fuck? In addition to Napoleon, we managed to lose, who else? Massena is actually dead. Molitor, I think, is wounded, because I've got him marked off, but I made the check back at midnight, so I assume he's not coming back on. On the Austrian side, Fresnel is out. I wonder if I checked these other leaders to see if they come back. I'm going to assume I did, because Massena is actually dead. Of course, yeah, from what I remember, that doesn't happen. Like, but I'm not absolutely positive. Like, you don't die on the first die roll. That you're wounded and check each night to see if you survive the day. We've got fairly heavy casualties in place, but the French have recovered a great deal of theirs. You can see Bessier has some wrecked cav. Over here, Molitor's division is pretty beat up still. That is the 3-4, which... I wonder if the flickering's getting worse or if I've just been away from it for so long, which is holding down here, which is kind of a safe place. What we saw, the Austrians tried to cross these woods. It's a pain in the ass, especially at night. I see, a fourth light came on, and that's causing worse flickering. Yeah, because now two of them are flickering bad. All right. Over on the Austrian side, we have more beaten up units. And this is leading me to wonder if the Austrians should be launching an attack. However, I do have orders here. Let's see. they look primarily, can I read this? Defense centered on Essling. Oh, Chucky's confident, which means there's some special rules which don't apply. And one of the biggest things is going to be re-remembering the rules, the specific rules, but also even just the basic system rules, because I've been away from the system, for over a month. I think it's been about 2 months. I usually don't pause like this in the midst of games, where I just don't play them at all, but I kept, well, first of all, I've got my fucking addiction, and I kept pulling, smaller games that I had to do for reviews and whatnot. But yeah, it looks to me like the Austrians are primarily concerned with holding their position. And this is not unreasonable, because right now they have the majority of the victory points. Trying to press the French. They were trying to do it last night, but now there's more French that have crossed the stream. There's even more that might be available. Remember this, there's this bridge situation, which looks like it's broken right now, but has a chance of reopening just in time for Claparete. I don't know who he is. I'm pronouncing him like he's Italian. He's probably French. Yeah, all right. And, everything's in recovery mode. Of course, it's nighttime, so nobody should be doing anything. But if the Austrians were going to launch an attack, they would have orders for it. And over here, the French have no orders. They are also concentrating on their defensive situation, not really planning on taking things to an offense, because they've been on the defensive all game. And they've got units that are a little beat up. They're a little worried about, if I go smashing forward here, take a lot of hits, I've got a weakness already over here. I don't have much to line up. But now with the 3-2 division, over here, St. Hilaire, we're starting to get enough manpower to actually hold the perimeter we have. This is one of the problems. Neither side has enough force, to completely densely hold the position. Now, usually the attacker won't be able to densely surround a position and attack in one of these tactical games. Usually they have to pick their offensive, effort and drive in that section. I mean, they could create a cordon, perhaps, if they outnumber, and trade shots at a distance. But to really launch attacks with support and whatnot, that's going to be pretty hard. But it's seldom the case that your defensive perimeter is as spread out compared to your forces as Napoleon's is here. So, yeah. I'll swap batteries, and I feel like I can't actually start playing. I'm just so lost in terms of what the hell I have to do in this game still. Sucks because I had gotten into the pattern of the overnight, which is kind of simple, but it takes a while to get, it takes a turn or two to kind of get the pacing right on it and everything, and figure out, hey, this is the things that need to be done for that. And now, even if I had the rules, really at hand, I would still have to figure out what my shortcuts are that help me process the easier overnight turns so that they don't take a lot of time. I think my memory card ran out, and that's why I ended not at the morning when all the excitement starts. I guess that's kind of good because it gives me a little bit of time to get used to the core mechanisms, some of the mechanisms, before I'm worried about, hey, actually moving forward. Though it doesn't look like anybody's going to be launching an attack right away. This right away is the Austrians have a lot of orders that aren't being implemented. So like these defend orders here, they haven't accepted them yet. I also had to cross out the headquarters order, which was already completed, just to keep the complexity low. Yeah, I know, you don't really need to have all these details, but it's kind of what you get when you open one of my vids. thing that I puzzled out that's supposed to be happening that still isn't going to happen, beyond just a defend, is the fourth corps, and with it, the reserve are supposed to build their defensive line up here, even further away. Basically, once they do that, they've basically told the French, hey, you can take Gross-Enzerdorf. We're giving up on anything that, might get hit by those guns, any kind of attack on Essling, and just dropping back to a defensive position to try to hold a line from Rasdorf to Aspern and a little south of Aspern as, the... All right, choose where you're going to attack, Mr. Nappy. So that is the one thing, and it's not happening yet. So otherwise, I guess all I'm going to be doing is a lot of mechanical stuff, rolling for recoveries and whatnot, because there's no firepower anywhere. We're 2 hexes apart here. I got to get tweezers to do that, right? At least if I do it one-handed. A simple recovery took like three to 4 times what it should. Just going through, trying to pick out, hey, which unit here is still eligible and everything. And it's a little painful, actually. So nighttime's weird because you're not doing anything exciting in nighttime usually, but the recovery, the percentage of units that are recovering is quite high. And even this late in the night, the Austrians are still hitting a lot. Now, for the French, it's going to be tougher because Napoleon's actually set up here so that he's ready to give Oudinot orders for his second corps, which must mean I still have Lannes in charge of this little detachment here. And I've got to start formulating my plan, I think so far I'm still holding a defensive posture and trying to remember what sort of the victory point exchange was. So we got 3 for this. I think that's it. Another couple for this. 4, 5. Maybe 6 for that. I don't have the points spread out. Versus 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks to me like the French win by doing nothing. So we may be in a position where, this is why the French are probably just going to take a defensive position. And then comes the question of, are the French willing to just accept this sort of minor victory, which historically they could have had, right? They held the Aspern Essling line throughout the first day. It got pushed out a little bit, but they held the line the first day and then launched a further attack. And there's nothing to really drive the French to do so. So, I don't know. It feels like the victory points for the game are basically asking you to play ahistorically. I'm gonna back away a little bit before I do that because I'm fatigued from just doing that little bit. And so part of the cost of being away for so long, I forgot to bother with random event rolls. I'm okay with skipping a turn of rolling for them. Chances are they don't happen. And secondly, they're sort of an optional rule anyway. I don't know if they're baked into the new rules as a base rule. They're in the rule book. They used to be like something that I think was, printed somewhere else, and not for the Napoleonic games at all, just for the Civil War ones. Sort of influenced by Richard Berg style random events that he would squeeze into games quite often. I thought they worked. I think they're pretty cool. They give flavor to each of the scenarios, but they may happen too much and have too much of an effect the way they're written. So no biggie that I missed a turn, especially at night, whatever. French, I gave orders to the Second Corps. That was the one thing I hadn't written. They're going to fill the center there. Second Guard Division is supposed to be over here somewhere. First Guard Division actually deployed. It's under orders, but not a lot happened. That's all I'm going to do until I go to the dentist, because I mean, I have time. I could probably squeeze out another turn or whatever, but I hate having to do anything. Like, whenever, I wish I didn't have the dentist to go to. I was wishing that before I started playing this. But now I'm especially wishing it because I know the weather's turning uglier today. It was pretty for a little while in the morning. But I set up evening, well, late afternoon, because if I had a job, it was easy. It's easier for me to do it at the end of the day and take the end of my day off. At least at my old job, I knew I wasn't going to be working that though, but you know, I'm sick. I hate going to the dentist when I'm sick. I have drainage and everything. I'm going to take a pill before I go, but it's so unpleasant. I end up drowning anyway in my spit, but now with all the snot going down, it sucks worse. Exactly what you want to hear when you're looking at a wargaming video, but hey, too exciting. I mean, it's a night turn on the Austrian side. They got a random event, Cavalry Recovery. It's one of the generic events. It allows Cav to do straggler recovery. It's a great thing to get at night. I got one Cav strength point back, or box back, in exchange for basically kind of disrupting my formation as I pull back. I finally got those orders underway. First time with coffee in my life for some time. It does bad things to my gut, and I ended up kind of cutting, you know, I've cut back to almost nothing. Drinking, like, I don't know, half a pot or whatever when I do drink instead of a whole pot. Or, yeah, almost nothing for me. But even that was not working out well. And the last couple of times I've tried it, it didn't feel terribly well. It didn't agree with me, so I might end up with a bad day. But I gotta say, the very rainy weather, I don't know. Yesterday was Wednesday, I think. Tuesday. Yesterday was Tuesday. And I did nothing except my computer game. So, yeah. That thing eats up time, you know, like, there's no way that work could eat up that much time, because I feel like I owe X amount of effort towards work. And when I go over that, I don't mind sometimes, but when I'm going over it regularly, I'm like, oh, something's wrong here. We got to fix this. They're not paying me to work, you know, overtime constantly. You know, like, even just an extra hour a day, if I catch myself doing that, I'm like, there's a problem here. But I've got no such control with the addiction. Anyway, maybe we're turning a corner just as the weather is getting at its most horrendous. You know, beautiful fall has been going on. Yeah, a little bit of rain here and there, but really, really pretty days. And now it's definitely winter. Basically, nothing happened on the French side of things, so. No order acceptances, nothing of interest. I'm so fixated, ingrained with the play a little bit, get to whatever is a decent stopping point, and then go down and do something else, which made perfect sense while I was working, because if I was up here during work, which happened as a nice little break, especially when I could spend 15 minutes or something away from the computer for a couple of times a day. I would, pretty much necessarily have to do that. But it also worked because I had less time overall. I liked to spam online, and there were things I was doing around, yard work, whatever, where it was good to play just a couple of turns a day or whatever on something this size. But those same habits are still here. So I took a couple of turns that took almost no time, honestly. Yesterday was tough because I was reacquainting myself, but honestly, I haven't forgotten much, at least of the stuff that needed to be done at night. We're getting into morning. There's some visibility now, three hexes, which means there's sort of engagement going on up here. We'll see what happens with that. The Austrians do not have orders to be there. That means if they undergo fire for a couple of turns and don't accept their orders, they're going to fall back at least a little bit, which could be problematic. Austrians do acquire those orders. These guys actually were under orders getting into place. They just delayed some of the units to take advantage of, especially the cav recovery. But these guys are under orders now. There's something, it didn't really screw me up, but it was kind of unremembered and unexpected, which is the order of fire in this game, that the phasing fire happens before the movement phase. That is different from the original, obviously. In the original, you moved forward, defensive fire, offensive fire. Here, it's offensive fire, movement, defensive fire. Which actually I kind of prefer. What it does is it combines two things. One, the offensive fire can't take place, you can't rush up and shoot the enemy, which I don't know if there's many games that do that. I seem to remember maybe Soldiers of the Queen had something like that. It's something weird. I don't really recall. But that was an old SPI one. Might have been a Berg. I remember something really odd about I don't think it had that though. That's one I ought to get on the table. But it also takes into account the sort of pre-fire artillery situation. And it works well here because there really is no musket fire at range except for skirmishers. So yeah, it's a nice add to this. It's a nice way of this system handling things, much more elegant than most games that I've seen do so. It doesn't have to put an extra sort of artillery pre-fire type thing. Terrible Swift Sword, the Great Battles of the American Civil War, definitely had that kind of, hey, you get to pre-fire with your artillery, then you charge in front of them, but then you have defensive fire, offensive fire. And there may have been something like that here. I don't seem to recall one way or the other. I seem to remember artillery getting screened in the CWB-based games. I like this much better than either of those solutions. So as to the French, here's where I'm going to do a little bit of, hey, let's fiddle around and just use realism and a view as to what the world is actually like as opposed to what the game system allows for. Which is, I only have a 3-hex visibility. I can't see what the Austrians are up to. I know they moved. They may have sent lights going. I mean, certainly there would be fire or lights going in this direction, but there might be additional demonstrations in this direction of a small scale. So I can't be sure where they are. So I'm not going to write out orders for Gross Enzerdorf. When we get to next turn, though, well, maybe not next turn, but when we get to the 6 visibility, I think we can see well enough to see that there aren't masses down there. It's hard to tell, because if that's fog or something, no, you're not going to be able to tell. And fog can make sounds work kind of funny too. But if I was playing, so I'm playing without any hidden movement. So, I have this God's view, which allows me to see where the Austrians are. So, I would write orders right away based on what I see. I don't think that's valid, although there might be scouts out there and whatnot. I might have some idea, but I feel like tactical fog of war, especially early morning when it might be real fog, is more severe than, and should be treated more seriously than in operational games and whatnot, where you see it more often, actually. Under the old systems, fog of war, hidden movement rules, I would actually have no idea where these guys are. So that would work perfectly fine, because they would be plotted, they'd come off the map. Under the new system rules, there'd be like a cube which represents them, and I would kind of know where they are. If I recall correctly with it. I don't think there are dummy cubes moving around and shit like that. So it's like, I kind of like the old system better, even though it's, more mechanically obtrusive. All right, enough chatter. Delaying my time, but I took out the one exciting thing is I took out some limbered guns. The Austrians weren't able to get their line in perfect shape or something. I don't know what happened. Shit happens in war, right? And as we finish the turn, we're seeing a fair amount of our artillery attrition happening with them so close to each other, even though they've got the village modifier in some cases. Definitely some ugliness going on there with the light beginning to dawn. Anyway, I guess what I was trying to say is, Napoleon didn't issue any orders because he doesn't know what's going on yet. And I don't think he will for a while. I've got a big question in my mind as to what I'm going to do anyway. Because if I count the points, Napoleon's winning by holding this position. I would like Aspern back. I'm probably going to run out and grab Gross-Enzerdorf once I see what's going on. I don't know if I want to do much more. And this is the problem, is the victory conditions don't drive you to do what Napoleon did. I don't believe that Napoleon's force is all that dominating, but I might be wrong. The big problem is that Fourth Corps is fairly chewed up. About as chewed up as a couple of the corps, the 1st and 6th, that the Austrians have. But that's a big unit. Davout, if he's coming in, I'll feel a lot better. But I don't feel terribly up on launching an attack without him in place. Even though, hey, we're going to get the bridge fixed, this, that, and the other. Yeah, let's see. There's been too many iffy situations. So I think Napoleon's going to kind of ponder whether or not he wants to attack for quite a while. And Charles, his army, even though he needs to take more territory to be ahead, he doesn't want to wreck his army trying to do something impossible. He couldn't do it yesterday. I don't think he can do it today. I still have the goal with Napoleon of trying to make this bridgehead bigger, but not at the cost that he took historically, which was rush forward and do it. Unless there's, and I don't think there is, some sort of, I don't know where these are. The loss of Napoleon. Yeah, it's bad form. Somewhere or another they have these. Yeah. Okay, so for the French, there's really nothing that forces Napoleon to take the overly aggressive stance, you know? And when you're talking about bridgeheads, I don't believe in overly aggressive stances. It's like, I've got a very conservative approach, probably to a lot of things, where I want to bring those reinforcements in. Now, if I have the Davout's extra corps, then I feel a whole lot better about launching some sort of attack. But right now, not so much. I mean, I'd be relying on like the Imperial Guard to launch the attack. Although I do have, who is this? I have Second Corps here. So they're kind of free. But I would rather launch that attack with 2 full corps. And so I think we're not going to see much until and unless Davout comes in. I'm not going to count on him coming in and launch an attack. Because again, I've got it in my pocket right now. You know, if I would call this game, if this were a competitive game, I was sitting in it and the goal was just to win, and I wasn't, you know, worried about trying to replicate any kind of historical thought processes or anything, I would just say, yeah, I'm pocketing it as the French. Now, as the Austrians, I would say, well, I had better launch an all-out attack because the only thing that matters, you know, it's that binary win-loss philosophy, which I just don't believe in. Anyway, getting the coffee jitters now. Nervous system is not used to it. Okay, played the full 4 a.m. turn. Austrians, you can see, extending their line out, you know, they're more or less in position. They got some artillery done, limber and whatnot. As the effects of the artillery fire. French had similar effects, but they get to recover on their turn, so it always looks a little better on your own at the end of your own turn. Bridge. Bridge was open, but only for 1 turn. Now, the Austrians don't know that. They didn't get a really high roll, but they got a middling roll, a 7. They do know that the French aren't going to be open until here, you know, off of that. But that means this, I don't know, second division of the Second Corps is on the board and moving up to join the Second Corps that still isn't accepting its orders. I don't remember. I don't think there's any impact at night. I don't remember if there was in the original. But orders given at night are kind of more problematic, you would think. Actually, what you would think is that it's harder for a unit to accept its orders at night. I've been ignoring the wander around at night rules, though, which, I mean, when you've got something as tightly built as these lines, it's hard to accept the amount of randomness that there is in them. For the Austrians, probably a little easier to accept. I'm not thrilled with them as an optional rule. They seem a little too heavy-handed, and again, the 3.0 series hasn't gone through the kind of revisions, and this is a new rule that's been added to make night movement more difficult, but it's gone from, you know, way too easy to kind of painful. I think it's a new rule. Jeez, I can't remember shit anymore. Did we have night movement in here? Yeah, we got 30 as night. Let's see. It may have been there all along. No. Doesn't have the weird movement rule. That's new. Of course, those are 1.0. May have gotten put in the 2.0 rules, which I thought this was a version of. I swear 1.0 was. I'll have to look at things. I swear that's my Austerlitz. It probably is. Yeah, Austerlitz was packed in here. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, the jitters are really getting at me. So the bridge was open. Not a hell of a lot happened. Nappy woke up at 4 and is wandering over. He's going to talk to Curiel, getting a view of what's going on because he's hearing there don't seem to be any Austrians in front of us. Visibility of 6 hexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That doesn't really get me to Grossenserdorf, but I could write complex orders that are like, or just understand what I've got, that are, you know, advance to here, capture it, and move into place, probably extending the line out here. That gives up defensively whatever advantage I have of these, but it might entice the Austrians to actually attack. Which overall is something I would approve of as the French. I guess that's it. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I've been shooting up here easily, and some of that may be the coffee, but now I'm paying the effect of the coffee, which is this, wow, everything's buzzing in ways I'm not used to anymore, and it feels like I've got a palsy or something. Okay, so back with less jitters. At the beginning of the Austrian turn, we got a random event. It was a commander loss event. We may have had one before. That may have been what killed Napoleon. I don't think so. I think he got shot in the reasonable fashion. I had to count up all the different Austrian leaders. There were like 19 on the board, so I roll a 20-sided die. I got someone who's not yet on the board, so that's not going to work. So I roll again, and this time I get Fresnel's replacement. I've decided I'm going to leave the replacements in the ordering there. That way, if you have a lot of casualties already, you're not going to, you know, further impact yourself. So it's essentially no effect. All right. Some of the offensive fire capabilities taking place, and I resolved them, but in doing so, I had to look up route because I don't remember what route was in the game. It's 6 hexes, no biggie there, but in looking it up, I noticed something missing. The old version of the rules had a nice table of contents. There is neither a table of contents nor an index in the current version 3.0 set. I consider that a major hit. With a fairly complex rule system, you know, in the original, you're talking 23 different rules sections. Here it may have gotten, yeah, it's up in the 28s. And a hell of a lot of pages, nearly 50 pages in the basic rule set now. The only thing that you're relying on in terms of being able to find stuff in the rulebook is that sort of, at least for me, is that image memory of, hey, where something is. Now, given how long it's been since I was dealing with these rules, I know them mostly. Like, I know the basics of them. I have, you know, my sequence of play that I can kind of follow and remember most of the stuff. But when I have to look up some little piddling rule, I can't just find it immediately. I have to page through the rule book, which is painful. Okay, I mean, the only really big thing, Curiel immediately accepted his orders. We still have got Second Corps and someone else. The Second Imperial Guard, waiting on orders that they've had all night, basically. And another part of Second Corps moving up here, still staying in command range, using a different road to avoid traffic jams. I guess the biggest news is that the bridge, this time, Austrian roll was a 6. So again, they're probably not expecting it to go out this far. Doesn't really make much difference, except in terms of ammunition. We could get a low ammo situation. Now, those low ammo situations are kind of weird. It's like, if you knew you were facing that, and the Austrians do not know what the French die roll is. If you knew you were facing that, you might be able to launch a coordinated assault, just as it begins or whatever, if you knew, like, there was a broken bridge up until here. But by the time orders are accepted and everything, there's a good chance there's another die roll for the bridge anyway. So it's like, you're looking at like a 50-50 shot no matter when you attack, whether or not you're facing a situation where the French might be in a low ammo position. And if they are in one, it's going to go badly for them comparatively. But if they're not in one, the defender advantages, etc., are just too great to overcome. So Charles is being as cautious as he was historically, even though he has he's confident now. And that's an extra French victory point, actually, which I don't know if they know they have it or not. All right, that's it for this little installment. Got this here's first little powdering of snow, a little heavier when I first woke up, to the game. And you can see there's nothing here. These all had a little bit on them, but a little bit you can see over in the park. It makes me a little happier, although not necessarily all that happy. Definitely determined that my longest running space heater is dead now. I've had it since the first year I was here. I started realizing, wow, I need one because I don't have any heat in my room. I have a backup. I thought I had two. The other one's just a little fan thing. I've cleaned it a few times. The one had to be cleaned like once a month or so. And now it's just not even trying to run. Not worth looking at. They're like under 20 bucks. Well, no, they're about 20, 30 bucks, I guess. Just not worth fucking around with. Okay. To the game, not much happened. Played one more turn. The artillery duel is kind of wearing itself out. I'm not sure why. Whatever losses were going to happen kind of happened from being placed close in here. Maybe I cheated a little bit. I don't know. The Austrians got an accelerated reinforcement. So their reinforcements are coming in a turn early. Just a random event thing. And for the French, Carriel has marched down, checked out Gross-Enzendorf, and decided, yeah, there's nothing here, and are heading back. Now, the orders I wrote were go capture it and walk back, based on knowing that it's empty. This is this is me taking advantage of that God's eye view to simplify things. If I didn't have that God's eye view, I might have scout out Gross-Enzendorf, and once you see what's there, then here's a bunch of contingent orders for you. And given that I gave them, what used to be complex orders, or whatever, I gave them engage orders. It used to be simple and complex were the two options. Now there's engage, complex in general, with complex basically being, all kind of alternatives and everything, but I just want to gloss over them because I can see there's nothing there, but I need to step on it, get the flag, and get control of it, because that's the mechanism in the game. And it's kind of silly to send the Imperial Guard walking here and marching back to where they're going to be, but that's the result. Nothing else really happened. A little bit of morale changing, that's it. Another half hour, nothing's really changed. The snow outside has turned to rain. It was kind of coming down nice little flurries for a bit. Might have started up again. Hard to tell. Probably just rain I'm seeing there. And I'm just kind of curling up in my beanbags and reading history, which is kind of interesting. It's the Prairie Grove campaign, American Civil War, Trans-Mississippi. Man, it is throwing into some light. Not my views on operational fog of war, but on sort of the grand tactical, where you might kind of want to use kind of a Jutland type representation where you're tracking stuff on paper, on small scale paper maps as to movements of units and stuff until they get to a close range. Of course, the difficulty with anything like that is you still need all the maps. You still need all the real maps in case a battle develops anywhere. But wow, the Confederates did a sort of an end run around a Union defending force and just completely blindsided their reinforcements and hit them. A couple turns I've gotten kind of blasé about bothering to check my orders. I've been doing it after I do everything else, sort of as an afterthought. And this time, well, Second Corps took its orders on which were to fill in the center here. And that's going to make the 2nd Imperial Guard somewhat iffy in terms of their orders. I may use Napoleon to cast those aside if I can find the 2nd Imperial Guard command. It's over there. So I moved. I was sitting around on the 2nd Corps, not on the Army. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'll write some new orders next turn for the 2nd Imperial Guard if I can remember to. They're sitting on a D6, so they're not likely to do anything. One which they got, I think, while the Austrians were still attacking Essling. And now with 2nd Corps filling the center of the dike works, I think I'm going to probably fall to no orders just to make it easier to issue them commands. Because they've got nothing to do. In fact, there's even a reserve for 2nd Corps here. And I moved some of 4th Corps over to make room for the rest of 2nd Corps, which is a good thing. I had to fill in the gap that those routed guys left. 4th Corps would really like a rest. And unfortunately, when I start thinking about what I'm going to do, if I launch an attack, one of my thoughts is 4th Corps, which has 2 of their divisions are okay, 2 of them are shit if they have 4. I think they do. Let's see what we got here. Like 2 have gotten beaten up and are on the line. Yeah. So Molitor and Legrand's divisions are in bad position, in bad shape. Especially Molitor here, who's the one sitting largely facing this. Saint-Cyr and Boudet, well, Saint-Cyr is untouched. Boudet is, he's taking a little bit of damage, but he's fine otherwise. Could launch an attack, but I don't really think I have things organized in such a way. Plus, fighting through these woods, facing those guns, man, that doesn't look pleasant. But none of the other options do either. The idea of attacking the town, not fun. The idea of attacking, a solid line like this, still not good. I'm beginning to wear out the Austrian artillery. The French are getting the advantage in that. It was fairly closely matched, but now it's shifting towards the French. And some kind of big swing over up here, which, is appealing in certain ways, just looks to me like it's the kind of thing that's going to cause me problems. Now, if Davout comes in, I'm not going to make an attack if Davout doesn't come in. So when Davout comes in, I may send him, maybe with some of the Imperial Guard, up on that kind of outflanking maneuver, hold the rest of the army in place, and move it forward, perhaps this way, to, try to force the Austrians into a bad position where they have to give up more ground. And that's really all I have to do, right? As far as I'm concerned, this little bridgehead, I'm kind of cordoned off in it, and it's going to be a pain to break out of, especially since there are more Austrian troops around, but of course there's more French troops around that would get called in as well eventually. But if I can open up a pathway to expand the bridgehead and, to maybe find myself another way across the river somewhere else as well, the situation changes completely. And it's no longer this kind of ugly type of position. This reminds me a little of Shiloh. I think I've mentioned that before. Just stuck on a landing with the river at your back, trying desperately to hold on. But the French appear to be in pretty good shape right now. They're not going to lose the bridgehead. That's the key thing. Like, the Austrians just can't afford to attack right now. And the bridgehead's good enough that I could walk away and say the game's over. But, well, Napoleon chose not to do that, so I guess I can't either. A little bit of snow overnight. Push through 2 turns at once because nothing's happening. And, when I'm able to play multiple things in a row, I don't come in as much with the video. So yeah, I got to the point where I'm like, oh, I got through a whole turn. Let's do the video just for 1 turn. Went downstairs, but then on this one, got through a whole hour at once. And really nothing's changing except attrition on the artillery. The artillery fire is having its impact. Both sides are losing some, but like the Austrian First Corps is out of artillery, although I maybe screwed something up because I'm seeing here that the 2-1 has 2 units of artillery. Actually, the 2-1 still has a gun left. I don't know where that other gun is. That may have been something that I didn't deploy or something. I'll leave it be, whatever. Because I vaguely remember there being an extra counter that I couldn't account for. It's just hard to read this. I don't know why, but maybe because it's so far over to the right, I have trouble with that sometimes. Napoleon went and gave some orders on the second turn to Bessières to move the cav over into here. Until I have Davout on the board, I'm not going to write orders to support Davout's advance, though to some extent, like, that's what I want to do, because I know what I want to do with him. We're coming up on a bridge check turn. Not gonna run through that right away. It's dancing day. Last week I missed, but probably gonna make it this week. I mean, it used to never even be a question. Somehow everything's become harder to mobilize and get out of the home now. Contrary to my bursts of energy in moving through turns that had nothing going on in them, the weekend pretty much written off, and I didn't get anything done of any use in any other sectors of my life. But pushed 1 turn out here before I go back to my addiction. The bridge, the only important thing, the bridge moved forward. Still not quite far enough, so Napoleon's not ready to make his commitment yet. This was a weird one. The Austrians rolled a 9, so they're like, they know it's not going to be for long. But the fact that ammunition depletion checks aren't being made means that I guess they know that it's open right now. But yeah. I think I covered a full hour because nothing's happening. I did it in broken up parts, so it's hard to tell. But when we hit the bridge, well, we got tied, which meant the bridge is open for a turn. That's not good enough. If that happened this next turn, maybe it would be, because Davout would be pushing across at that point. But kind of like to know that I'm not going to run out of ammo, right? Anyway, not much is happening. The artillery has gotten winnowed down enough that they're basically ineffectual. They're plinking at each other. There are some cases where a gun point can be lost on a 1 in 6 chance, but that's about the best we can get. Some of the French artillery is positioned here, and it's trimming away Austrian infantry, which, you know, eventually in the case of an engagement will be important, but what we're not doing is we're not changing the dynamic of the artillery fire by doing that. So we're going to start losing guns that the Austrians are not. We just don't. We don't have the same options in terms of fire. You know, the Austrians have the protection of the village here. That's helped them a little bit. And maybe their guns are positioned a little better. It's hard to tell because they lost a couple batteries. So, you know, we got the losses over here. It's hard to tell what exactly. I think this is all the stuff that didn't get used. And this is stuff that has actually been lost, and almost all of it's artillery. There's some cav too. Okay, 8:30 turn completed. The Austrians rolled a really shitty roll of 4 on the bridge, so they're thinking the French are going to be available for quite some time. The French know otherwise. It's only a couple of turns, but that's enough time to bring Davout in, and we've got him moving forward. Napoleon issued orders to Oudinot to sweep around the flank, and then those aren't accepted yet, but the cav accepted its orders finally and shifted up into its protective position, which isn't really ideal. I would rather have them closer in so I could give them orders to support Davout's advance, because I really kind of need the cav there. On the Austrian side, which happened earlier, reserve infantry is coming on board. Now this is kind of weird. I don't know if this was an errata or something. I've got it penciled in on here that they come in at 9 a.m. I think what I did was I puzzled out that they're supposed to be on the board from the day 2 scenario, or they're supposed to come in from the day 2 scenario, because they're left off completely on the full battle. Just, you know. Maybe that's been updated. Then again, probably not, because nobody's paying attention to this system. Nobody's maintaining it. Talavera flopped, and version 3.0 just never caught on, which is a shame. I mean, but we'll see. My gripes about, you know, how cumbersome it is will come up again once I start actually playing. Not much happening with the artillery, but the biggie is that we've got Davout coming on, going to give him orders. Not quite sure what orders I want to give him. If I'm using Second Corps as my main hammer here, I think I want him to hit up this way and then turn the flank as well, and just hope that whatever I've got back here, and that includes, you know, the Imperial Guard, which I can throw on the line if I want to, is enough to keep the Austrians from launching an attack. The problem is there's a lot of somewhat beaten up Austrian units here that numerically are in better shape than the Fourth Corps, which is the main thing holding the line here and over here too. But with all the French moving in this direction, I really don't think the Austrians are going to make a move here, but they might make a move to try to cut things off. Right now, I recounted the victory points just to make sure. It's like a 1-point French edge. Like I said, they could put the game in their pocket. But could they? You know, there could end up being a fight over Gross-Enzersdorf, which would be, you know, a 1-point swing each way. So it would be an Austrian 1-point. You know, if the Austrians manage to cordon the entire entry off, it does end up being a minor victory for them. But I didn't think I could hold Gross-Enzersdorf. However, the French are, you know, it's Napoleon. He's going to be a little aggressive, right? He's not going to accept, yeah, I got my bridgehead. Screw it. Anyway, 7th line, sorry. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That's the unit I was looking at. 9 a.m. turn. More of Davout coming on board. The reserve Austrian force coming forward. Orders, you know, I gave Davout orders. neither he nor Udino has started moving on them. They both have D4, so they probably will. And I'm going over to talk to Bessier next after having stepped on my army command. All of Davout is not on the board. Now, the Cav isn't here yet. I don't know how big Labao Island is. I think it may be that the entire force is already in place. I could probably find that. It's rule 2.9. Let's look it up now instead of... yeah, I'd have to... only one division at a time. Have I cheated? Yeah, I think I have. Let me pull the R's off. They're the ones I wouldn't have brought in because they suck. And so yeah, so the Cav and the reserve are not yet on. I can only bring a division at a time. I may have cheated earlier. I don't really recall. Here we had 2 units come on at the same time. And this is the wrong space though. And there, you know, there's multiple divisions coming in at once as it's supposed to be, as opposed to what we've been seeing. Second Corps, the real question is, did I bring Second Corps on too fast? Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just one division. So yeah, only Davout is problematic. So I haven't made an error yet, or the error I made with the R is recovered. But yeah, I mean, it looks like we're going to have a battle. Not sure how I feel about that, but whatever was supposed to be said to me, I don't know if it's actually coming. I was unable, you know, the guy asked for a phone number, and I'm like, well, I don't have one. But I gave him my email and said, you know, you can make one up or give him the email or whatever. And he sounded like he was going to send it, but it's been a long time since that email got to me, so I don't know for sure. He may have just decided it's not worth the hassle of dealing with me, especially now. But on the other hand, my GMT order hasn't arrived yet from the fall sale, so I don't know what's up with that. Maybe things are just not getting delivered. I have no fucking clue anymore. Twice now, I've posted mail recently where it hasn't seemed like, put it in my mailbox with the little flag up, it gets taken. And once it definitely was not received at all. And the other time I've got indications it wasn't received. It certainly wasn't received as quickly as one would expect. So, geez, man. All right. The 9:30 turn was somewhat exciting, actually. First thing off, bridge. Well, the Austrians did their thing. Just moving along here. Took out another French cannon or battery. Finished one off. The bridge check, which I do first, ended up with a 5-point difference in the Austrians' favor. Mainly a decent roll by the Austrians, but mainly a really bad roll by the French. So the Austrians don't know how bad it is. Secondly, we had a Cav recovery for the French. Both sides actually got an event. The Austrians got a lost order. They don't have any orders in transit, so no issue there. But the French got a Cav recovery, which we've seen a couple of these happen. Not much happened. This was actually impressive for at least one unit. It was a wrecked Cav unit that got two boxes back. A wrecked unit of a wrecked division. It unwrecked the division, and good stuff, the light Cav. That's the only thing that improved, though, I think. I don't think any of the others did. Maybe one did, I don't know. But also, Oudinot has taken up his orders, and you can see a big gap here. Now, the question is, does Charles take advantage of this and launch an attack? because obviously the French are not in a position to defend the center of their line anymore. And that could throw everything into chaos. The Austrians are not winning right now. And the thing that kind of prevented them from attacking was the fact that the Second Corps had moved up and taken a position there. Now, there are two things that were holding the Austrians back. Before the Second Corps moved, the Cav was kind of defending back here. There's nowhere near as much Cav there. It's all moved up here. Everything's shifting in this direction. Now, Napoleon's going to order Curiel's guard to take up positions there. And, you know, there's clearly units to do so. Plus, I don't know what Davout's orders are. They might be to go up there. So it's a pretty iffy decision. You know, there's definitely French forces that could cover, but this may be the only opportunity for Charles to get an attack. On the other hand, he also sees that Oudinot is on the move. What's up with that? You know, can I guess that this is going to be a big flanking attack? Probably, because if it was a straightforward attack, he'd just be running across the across the breastworks, so, or dike or whatever. Now, since the bridge broke, that means two divisions of Davout are not making it across, at least until late in the day. I don't know how late as the Austrians, the French do. So again, you know, at the very least, though, I know that the bridge is down, you know. And that means the French are stopping firing their artillery because they're mainly just getting plink shots that might hit a morale effect as opposed to anything else. So the Austrians may be in a really good position to launch an attack on this side. I got to think about that. 10 a.m. turn, Davout, the rest of the French forces that are involved in this attack are on the move as well. You can see that big gap there. Napoleon's up there to get the guards in place. I threw another brigade up there. Regiment, I don't know what scale is. I think it's brigade. It's brigade series you'd expect, but and that's about it. I pretty much have to go shopping today. It's the last day where there's semi-good weather. It doesn't look too nice right now, but it should be fine under this condition. But it's supposed to get sunnier, and I'm going to do that. Unfortunately, this time of year, I become almost non-functional from depressions. On to the game, which, again, has been slowed down for the same reasons. Interesting situation. Charles, I wasn't going to write these orders. Like, I rolled the die, said no. But this is just too damn inviting. So I'm going to try slamming Second Corps in through there. Now, of course, an opportunity situation like this, it raises a couple of interesting questions. One is, you know, do you want to take it? Because their delays are likely and probably something's going to be in the way by the time I go in. But it does mean all the reserves are moving in a different direction at the very least. And if I can take the breastworks, you know, the French army is screwed. I don't count on being able to do that, but and in terms of points, if I can't take this, there's not anything of value here. So, like, if the French can maintain a line going through so that they have supply and whatever, all their points are up here and over. So, you know, there's like, what, 1 point for the brickyard or something. Yeah, it's a net 3-point switch, though, so if that falls, that's good. But when you see something like this, if the army commander is going to do something about it, he's going to pick off each commander one at a time and give them orders. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to walk over to each one. He could send the orders, but that takes just as long. It just means you stay closer to your headquarters. So if you have other orders to issue, say over here where probably shit's going to be going down, you have a chance to do things. The other question is, do I actually want to write the orders to get this done, or should I roll for an initiative? Now, initiative here, I mean, orders are great when it's not an immediate action. But, you know, we're looking at a 3, 4, 5. table here, chances are I'm going to get like a D5. It's going to take an hour or two for the orders to start being implemented. By that time, this might be covered, you know. But the initiative would be on a 1. I would only really have, a 2 out of 36, 1 out of 18 chance of it even happening. If it happens, though, it would happen right away, and I'd be able to just march. Of course, there's the danger of loose cannon and all that, which could disrupt my positioning. If these guys turned around and marched off this way, that would get rid of the problem as far as the French are concerned. So, you know, with Charles's organization and whatever, I don't think making an initiative roll is a real option. But I'm not sure giving orders is either. At the end of the 10:30 turn, we're seeing some kind of interesting stuff beginning to develop. Almost, but not quite, developing a little bit of excitement for me. Almost nothing can touch me anymore in terms of bringing me any kind of activation. French 2 Corps heading off this way. Now, 2 Corps is a humongous striking force. This should be able to roll up that flank really, really easily. Of course, they're taking a little bit of fire as they pass by in column. Now, remember, the Austrians had 2 or 3 corps coming against 2/3 of a French corps, but in more defensible terrain. There's nothing to defend this. A couple of French corps against what? This is like the advanced guard, and then 4th Corps, which I think is undamaged for the Austrians. It hasn't seen any. It saw a little bit of action over there in Essling. But at the same time, French have left a gap here. And they're almost out of artillery here. They started losing the race, and then it just, spirals downward. And then you throw in the fact that they're sort of afraid to even take pot shots. If they can't destroy something, they're afraid to take a pot shot. But they're still taking a shot with the 4th Corps, which means that each turn it has to check for ammo loss. And Charles has gathered to give the 6th Corps orders. He's just going to try to sweep the French line here, and I think it was a mistake for the French to launch the attack. I didn't want to launch a half-assed attack with just 1 corps, because that probably wouldn't have a devastating result, although it might have gotten me in a position where maybe I get Rasdorf and the 2 points there and get a much, much more significant victory. But I just feel like I want to win the war here, right? I mean, that's a very Napoleonic thing to do. And now what it comes down to is the duel of the orders. Napoleon gave orders, and I should send him back home, it's not Carroll. Carroll's in charge of like a regular unit. Dorcine with the Imperial Guard here to cover the gap. The Austrians actually have a better delay on theirs. Of course, they have less to do, and there's some potential for squishing things around and getting some coverage if need be. If I can get like a coordinated Austrian attack through here, I think things are going to look really, really ugly for the French. Mainly because, I sent the majority of my army off to go do something else. And these guys are a little worn out. Well, they're quite worn out. And they're beginning to take, unlucky hits from the plinking and everything on the infantry, stuff that they can't really recover. So things are beginning to look pretty ugly for the French in terms of like, oh man, did I screw up? But the fact that the Austrians didn't like launch a morning attack or whatever convinced me, hey, they're not going to attack. Well, yeah, but if I open my ass for them, sure they are. Anyway, guess that's it. Napoleon's misgivings about attacking out of a position where he had the game won to try to secure a more substantial victory. All his worst nightmares appear to be coming true. First of all, withering fire by the Austrian artillery. This is just a luck factor, but 3 hits of a 1, which have basically silenced the guns, what's left of them, that could have defended the situation, as well as disordering the actual units there, putting this into a really, really ugly position. Oh, shit. I crossed a dike. I got to make sure that that doesn't shake those units. And the reserve in place, gives this line a little bit of extension with the Second Corps leaving. Gave orders to First Corps now. Moved over to give orders to First Corps. Sixth Corps got fairly reasonable, a D4, which, was a 1-turn delay. It's probably around, a little over a 1.5-turn delay, right? Because 50-50. And yeah, it's beginning to look really ugly. Now the French get their defensive fire here, but this is precisely what we didn't want to have happen. And it's as though Charles has trapped Napoleon completely. It's only treated as a slope, which is not problematic. Now I've been giving a defensive bonus for the artillery fire if you're wedged behind that. And that does not appear to be valid. It says only town, village, or fortified hex, and there's no indication of fire combat there. So I've been kind of favoring the French for being behind that dike. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, slopes used to provide a defensive fire bonus, and apparently they no longer do. It's got a line of sight problem, though, which I've also been ignoring when I fire distance here. I don't know. That has favored a higher attrition of artillery, which favored the Austrians. Let's call it a wash. This is me not having looked at this, with me coming back to the game. I think I was doing it correctly originally, but just assumed that it was kind of like a breastwork type situation, which would fit most of the way such things were handled in this system. But I forget it's a dike. It's a depression. No, it can't be. No, it's a raised situation. So yeah, it should provide some defensive benefit to being positioned behind it. I don't know. Maybe not much. Not for artillery, and skirmishers are so mobile that maybe I'm just thinking in the wrong sense. But in American Civil War period, I would definitely consider that sort of raised road or something that you could just sit behind the crest of very easily as a defensive position. A little bit of digging and whatnot, and you can put gun lines of sight through it and whatnot. And they've been here, overnight at least. Anyway, so more screw ups. Not. This is what I get for being away for too long. But yeah, this is turning out to be Napoleon's nightmare. He's got Fourth Corps sitting here. The Guards haven't moved up yet. Fourth Corps is pretty badly battered. Now, granted, the First Corps especially is not really in a great condition to launch an attack. What I'm doing, and see, this is, the order system kind of forces you into some weird shit. And I've seen this happen too many times. So what I want to do is a pincer, right? If I wanted to write out a ton of complex order, I would probably then unfold that pincer once it was successful, swing the Sixth Corps down here, and the Second coming across here. But because it's easier to write, I'm just targeting the Sixth straight across, more or less. They might swerve down and up. And the Second straight down, which gets me the pincer. It does something that no commander would want to do in terms of muddling forces, but it doesn't actually have any impact in this game. Might in Labatt. And because I think stacking causes problems in that. And then, you know, it gets me my units in the positions I want to be in. I couldn't quite decide whether I wanted second corps. You know, I mean, ideally, I probably would want that other maneuver. And that other maneuver would come naturally if there weren't written orders. But the written orders, you know, trying to predict what's going to happen out of this forces me to write something that enforces the pincer to be as effective as I might like it to be. And again, I'm not even sure how I would write that. You know, I could come up with some kind of shorthand like pincer movement once successful and leave that kind of to mind. Deploy down to breastworks, deploy or push on to breastworks. The one thing is, though, I suspect that the French are going to want to defend the breastworks, so second corps coming down here, it's the sturdier unit, probably isn't such a bad idea, right? I don't know. You have modifiers here that I wasn't thinking of. No, column's not a problem for skirmisher. Skirmishers facing a column doesn't give them any kind of bonus or anything. Alrighty, and I'm actually cooking. I made it to my shop and wiped me out as usual yesterday, and I don't know, even before I went shopping. So one of the things is when I start running out of the easy food, I start being forced to cook some stuff. And my pantries are running kind of low right now, or my stocks are, but it kind of put me in the mood, and I don't know. Plus, I pulled some fish down, which means that that I had to do something with the fish. But yesterday I just fried up some tuna for a sandwich, a couple of sandwiches, and it was really good. But now I'm doing actually kind of baking it. Nothing fancy, just, you know, more than my usual. Hey, let's make a ham and cheese sandwich, or maybe if I feel really, really adventurous nowadays, let's cook an egg or bake a potato. Kind of gotten out of cooking the last year or so. Little thing, no effect to it, but disordered units can't fire for skirmishers. Disordered firing from artillery is, I believe, halved. I don't see that here. But I think their firepower is halved. I'm going to have to fucking look that up. You know, it's just, I did the other games of the series, and then this one, the beginning of it, in a rapid enough succession I could remember these things. There, I just couldn't see it. Disordered units can't fire. Okay, well, that takes this away as well. I've just gotten that shaken result in the pre-fire. Ooh, that's nasty. Nasty. And I'm not sure. Yeah, I think the French are going to fall here. You know, they're hold on the line right there. I think the Second Corps is going to drive them back. They're in bad shape. Just really because of lucky shots with the artillery more than anything else. I don't know where my brain is. I remember earlier mentioning, hey, I don't think Curiel's with the Imperial Guard. Yeah, he is. He is the first guard. I guess I just saw him mixed in with the other leaders and got confused somehow, but I don't know. Or was there someone else? Oh, maybe Friant. Maybe I was talking about Friant, not Curiel. I don't remember. Austrian skirmisher fire did nothing like what the artillery did. Basically no effect, and you can see the French units beginning to recover. Dorcine taking up a stance, some additional forces with Legrand on them. They're beaten up, but they're going to try to hold that dike. And Napoleon ran over to give the guards orders. Meanwhile, the French hammer is moving into place. Now, this artillery gets to do some long-range sniping because I'm moving around in column formation. To get somewhere fast, you kind of have to. If you look, clear terrain in line costs 2 movement points each, so you basically get double time off column in this version of the game. I don't think that was the case in the old version. Not sure though. Anyway, that gets us to the 11:30 turn, and it's developing into what would be an exciting fight. As to my own, well, I had my yummy lunch, and honestly, sometimes it feels like if there's anything that, blanketing out all the pain by like my addiction. But if there's anything that kind of makes life almost worthwhile at this point, it's the taste of good food. It's not what I normally eat, and I'm too cheap to go out and buy fancy stuff to like go to a restaurant or something. But I can cook things that I really like. Unfortunately, that leaves a mess. I haven't been good at cleaning. I never am, but I've gotten worse. And there's also sort of a, hey, it's going to take you an hour to cook something, that you really want to eat or whatever that tastes good. The particular thing that you desire at this moment was the case here. It didn't take an hour of effort, but whatever. Napoleon's nightmare continues. Now, 6th Corps didn't join in yet. But 1st Corps did at the first opportunity that they had. They got an immediate success on accepting orders. This is just, it feels like I'm cheating for the Austrians or something. They didn't get the kind of artillery fire that they wanted, nor their skirmishers. Well, they're largely canceled out by the French ones. But yeah, we're launching forward, deploying the guns behind those attacks. There's some, depending on how I do retreats or whatever, there's some chance those will still be standing in case I get flung back. So that's kind of useful. I've also straightened this line on I guess, northeast-southwest line, rather than the kind of weird sort of refused flank that it had. I can't really give much ground away here. I've got a gun there that's hard to maneuver, and we're getting close enough that that I'm kind of locked in, and the best I have is this cav and then this to kind of try to defend my flank there. That's not optimal at all. The French reaching this far up, I was not in a good position to face that. This is going to be painful from my memory to resolve. But yeah, the Austrians have a coordinated attack. Now, 1st Corps is not in great shape. And, I had wrecked units that I'm like, well, I don't want to attack with those. They're not gonna do the job. So no wrecked units launched attacks, but some things that are pretty fucking close to it did. And it's time for me to relearn how to do close combats, because it's been a long time now. Fear of the Guard is here. Yeah, between the Guard, the fortified terrain that the dike represents, and a lot of the Austrian units were attacking across the dike, the only real success was at the Brickyard, which uses the special village rules, which you basically can't hold a village. If the enemy proceeds to attack you, like if they don't break before they go in, screw it, man. You're out. You take a loss and you roll on the loss tables, and it's not good for you. We had a mutual rout here as well. So where those weak units of the 4th Corps were holding in insufficiently defensive terrain, they got flung back. But the Austrians didn't take this space. They took this. It started looking real good, but they got repulsed here, got routed here, and then the rest of it shouldn't have even attacked. But here's the thing. I had orders to attack. And you might say, well, you shouldn't have made those orders. Well, yeah, but those orders were written before the Guard's ability to move into place was obvious. So it wasn't really that ridiculous a thing for the Austrians to launch their initial attack against that line. There was a gap there. They moved for it. It just got blocked, The coordinated assault, isn't really giving the results I'd want, and I'm pretty fatigued after doing this. Halfway through the turn, I'm gonna take some time before I come back to the French, whatever that means, because on the French turn, we're getting close enough. This is gonna hit too. So all those worries Napoleon had, they seem to have kind of petered out. Now, yeah, there's still a gap here, but there's nothing to really exploit it. It could shift some of Fourth Corps over to a more defensible position. And the thing about the village is it makes a really good place to hide from enemy fire. But if the enemy decides to charge in and get into close combat, which includes fire too, and they have an all reasonable unit, it's pretty easy to guarantee success on your morale check. Now, guaranteed success isn't so great here. So for the defender, it's fine. For the attacker can guarantee that they're going to make it over the hill, or they can come close to that, right? But that fortified terrain fucks your life up, because you end up on the firefight table. You succeeded in your role. It's almost impossible for them to fail their role, because they get a bonus of +1 for the fortified terrain. So if they're well-formed units, there were some wrecked units in this play though still. But if they're well-formed units, they're going to hold, and you're going to end up on the firefight table. And the firefight table, unlike the firefight table and the defender wins table, both cause some bonuses. The defender wins table causes additional damages to the in both cases it reduces the damage that the defender takes for being in that fortified terrain. The attacker takes what they would take under normal conditions. There's no assumption that they have to get closer and take more hits or whatever. If the attacker wins, though, the defender gets no bonus from that, because they're fleeing from the scene and still take the full bad effects. This is kind of very different from the CWB and the original NBS system, which would just give you a bonus to the results of the fire and to your morale check and whatnot. But if you did break, you broke, but you took less damage. Here, again, it feels more accurate. The attacker hits you. If you can't hold the position, you're going to pay hell, just as you would breaking under normal conditions, right? If you lose the fight, you're going to pay hell. Some of the guard got bloodlusted. We didn't get any leader losses, but this was a big turn, basically. I think the Austrian attack has failed, though. We'll see. 6th Corps might be able to smash its way through, but it feels to me like the Austrian assault has failed, which means then we come over here, and now Charles is in sort of a bad position, because he's got 2 big French corps hitting stuff that probably can't hold him off. Not in defensive terrain. Yeah, most of it, it's somewhat fresh. The 4th Corps is not fresh. The reserves are. But all of the French unit, well, no, still not the case. Oudinot, I think, took some damage at some point. Maybe not. Nah. I mean, he's got a hit over here. He's taken opportunity fire as he came forward. That's about it. So yeah, this is two fresh French corps smashing into a slightly weakened 4th Austrian Corps and the advanced guard and the reserve, which isn't, it's fairly good stuff. I see a lot of A morales in there. So it's going to be a fight, but I put my money on the French. They look like they have a much larger force. They also have a preponderance of skirmishers, which makes a big difference. It makes a difference on winning the close combats, and it makes a difference if you don't pursue the close combats. You can kind of stand at close range and trade shots. Of course, that just sort of makes up for the Austrian artillery, probably in both cases. So I'm going to go with numbers and probable quality. Probable quality is the French forces are better units, although it's obviously not the case with the reserve units over here, but they're not playing. One thing the Austrians have going for them, though, is they have a lot of cav, and that could change a lot of this dynamics if I remember to use it right. The cav hasn't come into a lot of play here because the terrain's so shitty. But out there in the plains, it might be the game changer. The French do not have their cav yet. They're sending their cav corps there. It just hasn't started, and so they're going forward without cav support. Could they drag their feet? Yeah, I don't know. I'm never sure about that kind of thing in the orders systems. I kind of allow it usually, but it also feels like you should be pursuing your orders, and if other units aren't supporting in time. And this was a big deal in this battle. I don't remember who it was, maybe Messina and Bessier really got into it over, two of the marshals really got into it over the cav not supporting at the right time and whatnot. Most fluid, normal portion of the game we've seen yet, because so much has been down here and then the overnight. So I'm going to focus in a little bit more. Initial fire. French initial fire did a little bit of damage, scared off some of the artillery, or weakened it. And then shifted up here, launching an attack back on the village. Take that back. Yeah. Boom, boom, back and forth, brickyard, whatever. Napoleon gave his orders. Nothing new happened there. He ran over, touched base, and made it to his to a routed unit to rally it. Over here, we're starting movement. Some stuff shifted around a little bit over here, but over here, starting the outflank, and that one advance guard cav. Cav ain't as powerful here as it is in Vive l'Empereur. So remember, you can form square automatically. Succeeded in morale check, didn't have an impact on that, which meant check to see if the cav makes it in or breaks off. They did not. So they were repulsed. They took some damage from that. Of course, that stops the infantry unit, which, if you have cav equal to the infantry, you can hold it off. But my cav is all positioned back here, not really where I wanted it. But there's some limitations, I guess. I don't know. I probably could have made it. Nah. My R corps is way back there, which is probably 6 hexes to the commanders. I'm probably actually 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm probably cheating a little bit there. Okay. The 2-4 cav should have been a little bit further up, though, and that I kept to protect the rear or something. I don't know why, but by chasing away the 1 cav, now the big outflank starts. At the end of the maneuver, not as deep an outflank as I maybe foresaw, which means hitting more of the line. Started taking some opportunity fire, and up here, so, didn't take any casualties, but I'm like, well, that's stupid. So, slowing down my advance elsewhere. I got enough troops, and there's little enough guns that'll probably overwhelm the line, but they got a bunch of guns that are shifting over. That are going to get shots on me as I come in. So I'm going to be facing a fair amount of artillery. It's just not set up yet. But some of it is, and I'd rather not give plinks. actually unlimbered some horse artillery here, which will allow me to do a little bit of softening up, but for the most part, I'm just charging in pure infantry force here. There's a fair amount of cav to try to do something about that, but the problem is this is a fixed defense, and I can't go beyond this before I launch my charge. So I have less cav than I really need to cope with the problem that's coming around the flank, even though it's a limited problem. But for the most part, the distances were such that these moves were what I wanted to make. The distances were also large enough that I couldn't really hit anything, which is why I didn't charge right in. And the net effect, not a hell of a lot beyond the last view. This fire was largely ineffective. Got a hit here. And Napoleon did not rally, but the other unit did. See, now that's a difference. The old system, the quality of the leader. Here it's either a +1 or it's nothing. It's a binary factor if you're at least a 2 leader. But in the old system, Napoleon would usually be a 4. He's only a 3 in this battle, though. Because the system rates the leaders as per how well they did in each given day. Not if you look at like the Napoleon's Battles mini system, it gives ratings for all the leaders. So like Napoleon is always top ranked. Well, they may have taken the Empires in Arms concept and given like Napoleon worse ratings after a certain date outside of France, but that, yeah. But anyway, under the old system, Napoleon was significantly better in general than Saint-Cyr would be, right? And even a difference of a 3 and a 2, it's a 1-point difference on the charts. Here, it's just binary. Do you have an adequate leader or an inadequate one? With replacements being inadequate. All the Austrians, even though they're low rated, are fighters, so they all boost up. And they fiddled around with some of the French commanders. Reduced the rating of 1, but made him a fighter as well, but in terms of rallying, remember rallying in this is not as automatic as it is in the old system either. So you can't be adjacent to an enemy unit and rally. It's still an automatic process. Bloodlust is a little different. This is the first time I've seen that. It feels more likely to fall away. I may be wrong about that because it used to be on 11 to 66 die. Now on a 1 or a 2, you lose your bloodlust. So I don't know. But yeah, the French easily took the brickyard back. The villages, they're just so weird. Like, I don't view them as defensive strongholds. They're weird. That's all they are. It's like if somebody attacks you in a village and they are quality, they will win. And so it was easy to brush them aside. It looked like the lack of French troops would be an issue. If 6th Corps comes in, the shortening of the line will be a big deal, though. Elsewhere in life, it's a Friday. This probably, given how complex the situation is right now, I can almost assure you I'm not going to come back up today, and probably not tomorrow because I'll be recovering. In addition, my game, it always has an event of some sort or another, but right now I've just gotten sort of the Christmas gift. Not they're going to give another gift at Christmas itself, but the December sort of a free good champion, and they gave. I also got a couple of. So they have a tiering of the champions, and the top rank. Well, they gave one away for free. I guess they do this every 3 or 4 months. Well, yeah, every 3 or 4 months or so. recently, and they've been. This is only the second one I've gotten, but that makes sense. Hey, there's a little birdie up there. But so I just got that, a day or two ago, and I also drew two top ranked champions at the same time, and at the same time I've been trying to level up certain others. So I've been putting a lot of energy into that. I can play the board games still, and blank out my mind from the reality that exists. So, at least there's that. It's just I can't face reality ever. All right, let us send this up.